3 is a little bit different here. Monomial factors. So we have a binomial. You see you have a binomial over a monomial. And with fractions, we can separate them. So we see that that 6 is underneath the 6m, and that 6 is under the 36. So we're going to separate them. And we're going to see if we can simplify those. So there is a nice way. We see that when there's 3 terms, you just put it under 3 of the terms. And I like this example because it keeps the negative with the 2x squared. And then we have a negative that's attached to the 8, which is right there. So that's a nice technique. I like that they're consistent there. So we're going to break these up. We're going to do 4a over 4 plus 12 over 4. This is one technique, mind you. And so we can simplify that and simplify that. Another way of doing this is we can look at 4a plus 12 over 4, and we can factor this. We can factor out a 4 and turn that numerator into that. I don't know if you've seen that, but I don't know if we've gone over factoring yet, but we can find a common factor and turn this addition into a product of 2 things. And then we again see that the 4 is multiplying, so we can cancel that, and we again are left with a plus 3. I don't know if there's any particular one way that they like more than another. At the moment, I'm going to separate them because that's the technique that is shown in the example, that negative. And we'll just try to stay consistent with what they're doing because this technique is not a bad technique. Both techniques are efficient. I don't know whether a high school would use one form over another, but we'll just keep doing it this way. This is a nice way to introduce it. We'll separate it. 20n over 4 minus 16 over 4, and we get 5n minus 4. 6x over 3 plus 9y over 3 plus 12 over 3. 2x plus 3y plus 4. Nice and simple, really good practice, 2m over 2, and it's nice practice in breaking it up and also simplifying. So seeing what these produce in the sense of simplifying. X to the third over x minus 4x squared over x plus 6x over x. That's x squared minus 4x plus 6. And we should be able to simplify these variables relatively quickly. We're doing 3 minus 1 is 2. We did 2 minus 1 is 1. X minus x is 0. X to the 0 is equal to 1. So hopefully you see what we're doing here and the speed and fluency that we are able to produce. And fluency means that we recognize that the coefficients 8 over 4 is 2, x over x are going to cancel, and you're left with just y. The negative 12 over 4 is 3, x to the second over x. Now, personally, I'd like you to rewrite this, negative 3x plus 2y, because I like it in standard form. So that would be a little thing that I would be a stickler on. I wouldn't want to see the variable y in front of the variable x as a final answer. But I might be different. We already see that this numerator is not in standard form. So our answer is not going to be in standard form. Doesn't mean you can't simplify it and do the work, do the heavy lifting part, and then write it in standard form at the end. That's going to give us 1 over negative 2a minus 3a squared, and I would rewrite it as negative 3a squared minus 2a plus 1 would be my final answer. I'm sure the answer in the book doesn't move it, That's just because some books are going to be different. Some teachers are going to expect different things from you. You have to be aware, and you have to see and listen and pay attention to what the teacher is going to expect from you. And that's not, it's not a big ask. You got to pay attention to what each of your teachers is asking from you. What are their tendencies? How much of a stickler are they going to be? Are they going to be lenient? Are they not going to pay attention to certain mathematical codes? Or are they going to be adhering to all of the expectations? It's going to change from every teacher that you have. Each year will always be different. It's just the way it is. There's no uniformity. But we see how these problems, this is still the easiest way. Ooh, I bet you that's a Y. I'm going to assume that that's a Y. It would be weird for it to be a V just at this point. So understand that I may have cut that off. Sorry about that. 27 over 9 is 3. Y to the 4th over y to the 2nd is y to the 2nd. 18 over 9 is 2. Y to the 3rd over y squared is y. Negative 36 over 9 is negative 4. Y to the 2nd over y to the 2nd is technically 1. So 4 times 1. 6u to the 3rd over 2u plus 4u squared over 2u minus 2u over 2u. That's 3u squared plus 2u minus 1. I mean, these are good questions, great problems, really good at just getting some good reps in here and seeing, are you proficient in your speed and accuracy? That's going to give us negative 4r squared. The two negatives are going to cancel and make a positive 3r. The two negatives are going to cancel to make a positive 2. The variables will cancel and we're just left with a coefficient. 5m to the 3rd minus negative m to the 3rd plus 8m to the 4th, not in standard form, so we see that, minus 3m to the 5th, negative m to the 3rd. Attention to detail is key to being successful in math. 8m plus 3m squared. We're going to rewrite that as 3m squared minus 8m minus 5. Ooh, this is a good one. xy to the 3rd over xy plus x to the 3rd y over xy, not in standard form. X's cancel, we're left with y squared. X squared, y's cancel, so I'm going to write this as x squared, y squared, if I wanted it to be in standard form. 8ab squared minus, sorry, not in standard form, 4ab minus 12a squared b. That's why it's not in standard form. So 8 and 4 makes 2. A's cancel. B squared over b gives me 2b. Negative 3a. And so I would rewrite it as negative 3a over 2b would be my final answer in standard form. Greatest monomial factor of 3x. Yeah, okay. Oh, so now we're factoring. Yeah, so now we're looking for their common factors. This is our first go at factoring, so we have to find a greatest. When we factor, we look for a GCF, and we're going to take it out of it. So that's going to be 7a squared times the quantity, 3a minus 2 would be the GCF. This, and notice, a lot of students make the mistake of just giving this part. They factor out the GCF. This is the GCF. They factor out and they just give me 3a minus 2. No, we need both of it. It still needs to be equivalent. This is just another way. We're turning an addition and subtraction problem into the product. And that's what factoring. Factoring is just turning things into the product of two things. So how did I get 7a squared? Well, we talked about that in, in the earlier sections about finding GCF of things. So we can break it down into its prime factorizations. So 21a to the third and negative 14a squared. So 21 is 3 times 7 times a times a times a. Negative 14 is negative 1 times 2 times 7 times a times a. So GCF is circle the common. So if we circle what they have in common, they have a 7 in common, they have an a in common, and an a in common. So my GCF is going to be 7a squared, and that's how I got 7a squared up here. So I got this 7a squared. Now here's the neat thing is, how did I get 3a? Well, notice that we have 3a left after we take out that 7a squared. And notice how we get the negative 2. We have negative 2 left after we take out the 7a squared. So that's where those values are coming from. If we take it out, if we take that factor out, what's that left over? But all of this should be done mental. We should look at 4x to the third, 32x. We look at the coefficients first. 4 and 32, my greatest common factor is 4. Then we look at x to the third and x. What's the most I can take from both? I can take an x. So if I take a 4x from 4x to the third, that leaves me with x squared. If I take a 4x from 32x, that leaves me with 8. And that would be factoring that binomial. That's all we're doing here. 9, 36, 9 goes into both. X squared x, you can take out a maximum of x. You can't take an x squared because this doesn't have 2. So we can only take 1. That leaves us with x plus 4. 21c to the third minus 14c, we can take out a set. Whoa, we can take out a 7. We deal with coefficients, and then we deal with variables. So 3c squared minus 2. And the way that you check is you redistribute it back out. Does that equal 21c to the third minus 14c? Yeah. So this is my check. If you want to check, just redistribute it back out. That's the easiest way to do it. You just got to make sure that you take out the greatest common factor and not just a common factor. So 5 is the greatest common factor. No variable is shared amongst the 3 terms. Now we have 3 things that have to be divisible. So that's 2a minus 7b plus 3. And the other thing you want to do is make sure that you look inside here and check for any common factors. So there is no common factor. So now I know that I took out the greatest common factor, that 5 was the greatest common factor. So just because you do it doesn't mean that you don't check stuff. Excuse me. 16x, negative 12y, positive 24. 4 is my greatest common factor, I think. That gives me 4x minus 3y plus 6. We can look at the coefficients and the variables and see that no other number can be factored out. 8p, 4q. So let's take an example. What if I only factored out a 2? So that would leave me with 4p minus 2q plus 6. And what I'm talking about is there's still a common factor. You can still factor a 2. So I would need to factor out another 2. This 2 is here, and I would still factor out a 2 to get 2p minus q plus 3. Now I notice, so my answer is 4 times the quantity 2p minus q plus 3. This is the answer. So you got to make sure that you factor out the GCF. Okay, so be careful of that. That's a great example of finding a common factor. So this is a common factor, but not GCF. Okay, so make sure you factor out the greatest common factor. We can factor out a 3 x minus 2y plus 4. And yes, these two have a common factor, but it needs to be all three. So it must be shared amongst all three of the terms. Okay, so these are some of the things, the pitfalls, the tricks that you need to be aware of in order to produce a correct answer. 15a, negative 20b, plus 10. So 5 goes into each of those. No variable is common amongst all four. And when we factor, we're just dividing this number into the term. 5 divided by 15 is 3. 5 divided by negative 20 is negative 4. 5 divided by 10 is positive 2. That's where I'm getting those, right? That's all factoring is. Factoring is a form of division-ish. So we can take out a 3a. That leaves us with a squared plus 2a minus 4. 10x cubed minus 5x squared plus 20x. We can take out a 5x. That's 2x squared minus x plus 4. That's a nice little tricky one. 5x goes into negative 5x, negative x times. We have 5y. That gives us y squared minus 2y plus 3. And can you do it that fast? Can you look at it and find the greatest common factor and then divide it or factor it in and get this solution that fast? That's your goal again. Can you break it up? Finding that GCF. Here's another technique. So 8ab squared minus 12ab. So we see that 4ab. So if I do this, you know, what's left? That would be 2b. And then if I break this into a product of 4ab times what is 3a, because that's what, and we see that they have a common factor of 4ab, and what if we take that out, we're left with 2b plus 3a. Okay, so if I had just done this, and that needs to be written as 3a plus 2b as my final answer. But if I had just done it before, if I had looked at that and said, oh, I see that my common factor is 4ab, divide that in, that's 2b negative, oh, I forgot the negative, Mr. Mac. Good that I talked this one out. Minus 3a. And then I would rewrite it as 4ab, negative 3a plus 2b is my answer. So I'm just turning them into the product. This equals this. This product equals this. So I just broke it into a product factor. And then I noticed what they had. I pulled it out, and that was what it's left. Probably not the best technique, but 3a squared b squared, 18ab. We're going to take out a 3ab. And that leaves us with ab plus, not 3, 6 would be my answer. 6y cubed minus 24y squared minus 12y. Let's take out a 6y. That's y squared minus 4y minus 2. That easy, that fast. 20, 35, 15, that's 5. Y to the fourth, y to the third, y to the second. We can take out a y squared. 4y squared plus 7y plus 3. Yep, that easy, that fast. Put it up there, that's your goal. You can do it. You can do it. Good luck.